Hello and welcome to the WCS History Podcast. My name is Brandon Pence. This is Jacob.
Hello.
This is Francisco.
Hello.
This is Bobby Joe.
Hello.
And this is Ashton.
Hello.
And today we'll be talking about space, as talked about last time. Currently we're going to start out with
the name doesn't have deep roots.
For NASA, I'm assuming. We're going to be talking about NASA, Apollo space missions, newer things that have happened recently, and possibly what we think could happen in the future. Anyone want to start it?
I'm reading still.
Ashton, let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have the list of random facts, so... the Apollo program created many spin-off products. While there are probably as many spin-off products that are mistakenly attributed to the Apollo program as there are genuine ones, such as the portable cordless vacuum cleaners. Well, that's the best known, apparently. NASA announced that they needed a portable self-contained drill that they could extract core samples from beneath the lunar surface during the missions. The Black & Decker company was tasked with developing such a device. To do this, the company developed a computer program to aid in designing the drill's electric motor so that it used the least possible amount of energy, while doing what it was designed to do. Soon after the drill was shown to be effective, the same computer program was used to design a miniature, portable vacuum cleaner named the Dustbuster, which was light, cordless, and naturally proved a popular household tool for when it was first marketed in 1979.
All right.
I actually didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I thought... Well, I didn't think that... I never really thought about how drills came about. 'Cause it's like, drills are needed, but when did they start becoming cordless? Which, obviously, now.
Missions on the moon, apparently.
Yeah.
It would make sense, because if it was portable, you don't have to carry that big extension cord across the moon.
I guess they just really didn't want to have to get that much cord
I
jumped
got-
into space.
He's a big cord going from
Wait,
Earth.
I have a thing that showed like how far they were from Earth, actually. So if they were to take an extension cord, it would have to be at least 400,171 kilometers long.
Yeah, and each kilometer is about 3 or 4 miles.
Well, it's 248,655 miles.
No, we got it backwards.
I got it backwards. It's, yeah.
1 mile is 1.6 kilometers.
Ah, right. I got it backwards. Very backwards.
That's going to be a very, very long extension cord.
I'm sure you can find it at Home Depot.
Just custom order it. We know Home Depot has this stuff.
So, like, is it attached to the ground to the rocket, and they just fly up? And
Or is it like that gigantic roll, like you put your hose on?
Ah, yes.
I think that would provide
They'll
some
drop it from the
complications,
moon, and gravity will pull it down, right?
Because that's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just actually let's go of the drill. It's gone.
Houston, we have a problem. Can we have the drill back, please?
That's terrible to think about, but it's hilarious.
All right, so next, Brandon, why didn't you tell us a little bit about the name?
When NASA, the Space Task Group, were brainstorming names for their first manned satellite project, they favored Project Astronaut, which they believed would emphasize the man in the satellite. According to NASA, that name was eventually discarded because it might lead to overemphasis on the personality of the man. Mercury was chosen instead, thanks to its use in thermometers and automobile branding. It was familiar to the American public. The Roman god's role as a messenger was also appealing. The program would go on to make 6 manned flights between not 18. Wow, that was too soon. 1961 and 1963, taking us from Alan Shepard's 15-minute flight to L. Gordon Cooper's 34 hours in space. As NASA began looking beyond Mercury's missions, they recognized that mythological naming convention had been established. Dr. Abe Silverstein, however it's said, I'm not sure. Get mad at me all you want. NASA's director of spaceflight programs suggested the Greco-Roman god Apollo, which might seem like an odd choice for a lunar program, considering Apollo is traditionally associated with the sun rather than the moon. But Silverstein supposedly felt that the image of Apollo riding his chariot across the sun was appropriate to the grand scale of the proposed program, according to the New York Times. However, Silverstein would later say there was no specific reason for it. It was just an attractive name.
Was he saying that we're going to fly around the moon someday?
Who?
Silverstein.
We're gonna fly around it? I don't.
Yeah, because they
Around
said
what?
the chariot.
Well, Apollo is the sun, isn't he?
Yeah, Apollo is the god of the sun.
So that's some because they believe that.
I might be thinking of the wrong god. I'm thinking of the Greek god that actually used the chariot to summon the sun.
That's Apollo.
Greek. Roman,
Apollo is Roman, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Apollo is Roman.
What's the Greek god's name that used a flaming chariot and he had his son went to ride the chariot, he fell off, and something bad happened.
That's what gave man fire, if I'm correct.
No, that was Prometheus.
That's
Prometheus.
Prometheus the Titan.
Yeah, Prometheus.
Guys, I think we're
going way up.
No. So Mercury is a Roman one, and Apollo is a Greek one.
Nope.
No?
Greco-Roman god Apollo.
Yeah, because
Apollo is Roman.
the Romans picked Apollo and they made their own version. It was Mercury,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
A lot of times what the Romans did is when they conquered a new piece of territory that already had an established religion, they would take that god and incorporate it into their own religion to make the people feel more safe with the Romans and have them side with them because, hey, our god's in their pantheon. Let's take that.
How kind of those Romans.
Hey, they just casually wanted to take over the world, you know?
But at least they'll be inclusive with it.
Oh, those Italians.
Alright, anyway. So, we've gotten to why Apollo... We've talked about random facts about space, like what it brought us. And we've talked about the naming of Apollo and also Mercury. How about Jacob? Or no, Bobby Joe, you say something.
Space.
The final frontier.
Alright. What do you got on space, Bobby Joe?
Well, according to this paper, Apollo wasn't originally supposed to take us to the moon's surface. The original intent of the program was to wasn't actually a lunar landing. It was to announce in 1964 the project's goals to send a 3-man crew into orbit in the moon.
Just go around it.
Yes, not actually land on it. Until May 1961, when President John F. Kennedy delivered the famous speech about declaring the nation should commit itself to achieve the goal. Someone else take over. I'm sorry, I am very tired, so I'm messing up on my words here.
Alright, his famous speech declaring that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth.
Yes. And yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on that?
If I was to go to space, I'd bring air canisters and I'd pretend to fly around. I find that fun.
And very dangerous because he might just fly off into nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, I would be in the ship
Really?
doing it.
Inside the ship, the small ship that's meant to only carry like 5 people.
I'm thinking of the space station, how big it was inside.
That's still there's
Not so big.
not so
I'd be
big.
connected to a cord on the ship.
That's
That's
still-
a spacewalk,
yeah, and still dangerous.
and yeah. Anyway, what
One
were you asking my thoughts on? Sorry, I spaced out trying to correct his errors.
So,
John F. Kennedy's speech.
yeah.
So here's my question to Bobby, because you guys were talking about the Cold War, right?
Yeah, we
Earlier
were talking
today.
before that.
So, and this is related to it because we were trying to go to space because.
Because the Soviets were.
Yes. Can you tell us more about that, Bobby?
Yes, history I can tell you about. So, essentially, after World War II and rockets were becoming more of a mainstream thing, both sides wanted them because either for war or space travel. So what they often did was find Nazi scientists, capture them, and have them work for them. Say Werner von Braun, for example, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, was a nuclear scientist for the Nazis' nuclear program. And when he was captured, he helped develop more powerful nukes for the U.S. Army, which he took that money and that knowledge and went to China and gave them nukes for even more money.
Okay.
That happened a lot. Nazi scientists weren't really bound to one nation, so they kind of switched between nations and just whoever paid them more money. And their knowledge helped us and multiple nations build rockets, so we can go to the moon and all that. So, in a very weird way, you can thank the Nazis for space travel.
Okay.
Thanks, Hitler.
Well, he was dead by then, wasn't he?
Yes. Yes.
He wouldn't have brought Nazi scientists into the world. Nazi.
He supposedly was, but
Apollo 2 and 3 did never exist.
Are you going to talk about how there's technical difficulties?
Oh, I was just told to say this.
All right, so there were technical difficulties, not important. We're back now. Even though for you it was just a small cut. Anyway,
For us, it was almost
like you were
30
saying, Apollo 2 and 3 didn't exist. In 1967, astronauts Virgil Grimson and Edward White and Roger Chaffee were conducting a pre-flight test where the command module was mounted as it would be for the launch, but nothing was fueled up for what was known as mission AS-204 when a fire broke out, killing the 3 astronauts. The decision was made to honor the astronauts by referring to the never completed flight as Apollo 1, but this left open the question of what to call the next flight. One solution was to call the next flight Apollo 2. Another option was proposed to retroactively designate 3 earlier flights, AS-201, AS-202, and 203, as Apollo 1A, Apollo 2, and Apollo 3. Even though these flights launched before the fire. The reason for the suggestion wasn't evident even to NASA. As the agency explained, the sequence of and reasoning behind mission designations has never been really clear to anyone. Eventually, according to NASA's history, the never launched flight would be officially recorded as Apollo 1. First manned Apollo Saturn flight failed on ground test. AS-201, AS-202, and AS-203 would not be renumbered in the Apollo series. The next mission would be Apollo 4.
so as we can see in the beginning, they were just sending the chip or the shuttle with no people in it.
Well, yeah.
And then when they tried to with people in it, it got fire.
No, I'm guessing something was still in the fuel tanks and it went on fire. Wasn't Apollo 2 one of the ones that also exploded on launch?
I have a thing on that.
I'm not 100. You
think
got
so.
something on that?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think it's that specifically.
All right. So I don't remember, mainly because I wasn't alive at that time. But no, I
Are you
don't.
sure about that?
Well, I don't think I was.
He's not 80 or 40 or 50.
You don't know my age.
You're 15.
Hey.
He's 16,000 years old. Don't you know that?
I'm 20,000.
All right. Anyway. So, Apollo 1 and wait a minute. What was I saying? Yes, Apollo. Apollo. The launch of Apollo 4 was one of the loudest man-made noises ever. The control room for the launch of Apollo 4. Apollo 4 was an unnamed mission that served as a test for the 363-foot-tall Saturn V rocket. Was the first ever launch at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, when it occurred on November 9, 1967. The liftoff was so loud, according to NASA, one of the loudest man-made noises ever, that it shook buildings as far as 3 miles away, causing dust and debris to fall from the ceiling of the control center above. I hope the vehicle assembly building doesn't get any crack, which is what Dr. Hans I don't know his last name. Can't say it. Too hard to say. Director of Kennedy Launch Vehicle Operations said after the launch. It rattled pretty hard, and a cheer went up in the control room after liftoff. The launch pads lacked a sound suppression system. But by the time the space shuttle was in use, more than 300,000 gallons of water were sprayed out in just 41 seconds to dampen its sound to acceptable levels.
So, Bobby, what do you think? Comparing that to the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where do you think this is?
Like on destructive scale
Or no, sound.
sound? I'm not really sure. I don't study necessarily the sound that certain weapons and things make. I more study what they are and what they do. So
Okay.
I would not be the person to really answer that question.
What do you think, Jacob?
Well, I just realized something funny. This is supposed to be Revolutionary War, the Industrial Evolution Part 2 we're supposed to do today.
No.
No, that's
No.
not.
The other thing was Part 1, though.
No.
We're getting
Okay.
sidetracked.
Back on track. What do you think, Ashton?
I think the nuclear bombs would have been way louder.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, I think they were louder because, they destroyed
Exploded.
things.
Yeah, they did.
They actually broke things.
Except it wasn't the noise that destroyed the cities.
The actual shockwave, which was the sound traveling.
When something goes off like a gun or something, the pressure, which can be conceived as sound, would actually force the bullet out. Same with a bomb, the entire pressure would go everywhere.
Yeah, that was the shockwave. The
Yes.
shockwave would always deal immensely
Didn't the shockwave
more
break the
damage.
sound barrier from the bomb?
Did
Which one?
Did it?
Little boy. The one that we shot at Hiroshima.
Yes. I think so. I know there were bombs before then that definitely broke the sound barrier.
What do you think, Ashton?
I think I don't know nearly enough about history to answer that.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Let's jump into something more current. Elon Musk.
The self-landing rocket man.
All right, let's talk about that.
Okay.
The self.
That's a weird title, but okay.
Yeah.
You mean the self-landing rocket? Well, it's not going to think of when I think of him.
Not just him, but
He also
alright.
made cars.
Like, I'm going to
No,
That was
he
a
does.
really good movie. It was a really good movie
No,
franchise.
no, that's not what I meant at all.
He makes flamethrowers.
He did.
No, he makes not flamethrowers.
Yeah, that's correct. Because to get them through shipping and handling, you can't send a flamethrower through shipping and handling. So it's called not a flamethrower to get it through shipping.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Not flamethrowers, and we're being monetizer friendly, so not flamethrowers.
Yep, the boring company.
Yeah. Anyway,
not a bomb.
No, you can't say that.
No.
hey, hold this not a bomb for me.
Okay.
What about Elon Musk?
Back to Elon Musk.
Back.
So you remember? Everyone remembers how everyone remembers.
Yes, everyone.
I say everyone remembers. So, you guys know about how he launched a Tesla Roadster into the
Yes.
Earth's
Yeah.
orbit? What are your thoughts on that?
Wasn't it supposed to go to Mars?
It was supposed to go to Mars. It only made it to Earth orbit,
I think it was, yeah.
if I remember correctly. I don't know.
I think that's his big goal plan was to
Yes, it was
Mars.
to make it to Mars, and I think there were some final minute corrections that only sent it around.
Well, you also gotta think Mars is pretty far away, and it take a while for it to even get there.
Well, there's no rush, so.
Yeah. Anyway, that was besides the point. Do you guys know how much debris is orbiting Earth because of satellites sent up?
A lot.
It's a
yeah.
lot. Have you seen the diagrams?
Yep.
I don't gotta see a diagram. All I can do is know there's a lot of stuff that's caused on Discovery Channel says a lot. Then the Science Channel will also say a lot. So I know there's a lot. 2 channels to talk about it on TV.
So here,
I feel like they show you a crazy picture, but it's not really like that.
okay.
I don't know
so
why.
the dots. If you've looked at the diagrams before, they aren't. You see the dots. You'll either think, "Wow, that's a lot of particle. That's a lot of mass to be out there," but they don't really tell you how big it is. That's where it is. It's all sort of smaller debris. But even that small debris can still be, bad.
It is, yeah. Garbage.
I'm probably gonna sound like a complete D-bag, but isn't space infinite?
Not our space.
Yeah.
Not our orbits.
I wouldn't say that space is infinite.
Well, theoretically, it's still being created to this day because we don't know how far the Big Bang went. All we know is we're in this area.
I don't think it's being created anymore. It's just expanding.
Yeah.
Well, we
Space
don't
is.
know. What if the Big Bang is still going on, the power of its atoms and whatever's going through,
Well, it's-
creating more stars.
Isn't it the dark matter that's like slowly pushing stuff apart?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
It's just expanding.
Things are moving.
It's not so much. It is dark matter, but it's more so just matter.
What's it called?
It pops into existence and pops out.
Oh, it's that stuff.
It's yes.
That's antimatter.
Well, yeah, that's antimatter, but there's also
And normal matter.
normal matter and dark matter. But dark matter essentially does the same thing. It only really just exists. It exists and it pushes stuff around. It doesn't have a natural.
The cool thing about dark matter, if I remember correctly, it can actually split atoms apart safely.
Yes and no. You have to have it. You can't control.
We can't control it, but that's what it can do.
It does it on its own. Yes. What was I going to say?
Bobby,
Something about
we were
that.
talking about China and space programs. Can you tell us anything about that?
I don't know much about the Chinese space program besides the.
No, but tell us about the history behind that. What got them to that point?
Oh, okay. So this goes back to the Nazi scientists again. So when these Nazi scientists were working for, say, Russia or America, they would, like I said, look for people who offered them the most money, and then China offered them some money. They'd work for China. I believe one of the I mean, the most influential rocket scientist that I know of is Werner von Braun, like I said before, and he is credited for going to China and helping them with nuclear devices. And that wasn't good at the time because we thought Werner von Braun was our best friend because he helped us so much, and then when he betrayed us, it was quite interesting.
Was it considered a betrayal?
No, because was he even a American citizen? I don't think he was.
If he
I don't
lived
think he was,
in
no.
America for 10 years, he is legally an American citizen.
Not if it doesn't apply.
Correct. You have to apply for
Yeah.
citizenship.
Question is, were
And-
there applications back then?
Well, I'm gonna say he probably wasn't a citizen because, on accordance that he was a Nazi and still followed those rules, I don't think he would just be willing to just give up his citizenship that easily. So he could have just, excuse me, just been captured by the Americans, forced into their, programs, and then left to China.
Was he captured?
He could have either been captured or went to America. I don't remember exactly what, but either way, he wound up in America working for the American government to make nuclear devices and rockets, but mainly nuclear devices.
Oh, okay. I watched a documentary in, I think it was 7th or 8th grade. And I remember it was a story about a young German scientist who, I don't remember his name, but he did well in school, and if I remember correctly, he was literally taken out of school, brought to a nuclear testing facility, and they told him, do your best. And they were trying to get him to build a nuclear rocket. And so, if I remember correctly, I don't remember his name. I don't remember what it was about. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they don't realize that Nazi Germany were creating nuclear devices. They were planning on creating the Operation Heavy Water.
Yeah.
That entire thing was about creating nuclear weapons, but they needed this heavy water to actually power them and operate them, which was cut off by, was it Norwegian and British paratroopers? Or
Yeah, British and Norwegian.
yeah, and they cut off the supplies, destroyed the factories, and they had to go get their heavy water elsewhere, but they couldn't produce enough, so I believe the project was canceled, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people should realize that America wasn't the first country to think about building these nuclear devices.
No, not at all.
No.
I'm sure there were plenty of people, even like before war. Before war, that's not the thing. There's no such thing as before war. Before
World War II?
Yes, before World War II, I'm sure there were plenty of people who were like, hey, look, there's this idea for a extremely powerful weapon that can destroy cities, and everyone's like, why would we care? That's too much effort, we don't have time for this.
Yeah, and then it was like, until World War II actually started, they're like, we don't need that. And then as soon as World War II started, hey, we need that.
Yeah.
So research began developing.
Anyway, that's not space. So,
Nuke Mars.
Mars? We want to talk about Mars?
He just said nuke Mars.
Oh, nuke Mars. Alright.
Oh, don't nuke. Mars.
Let's restart this core with a big nuke. I think that'll
Well,
Why do you think we don't nuke the moon?
why do you...
Because it's so close to us. If we
Is
blow
it?
it up, it's gonna hit.
No, that's not why!
The
Don't
main
blow
reason
up
why we don't want to
planets.
nuke the moon is because the moon.
Tides.
Yes. If we don't get tides, we'd actually lose a lot of fish.
If we tie...
Well, okay, here it is. I'm not saying destroying the moon. I'm saying
Nuclear
nuking the
test
moon.
facility?
Nuking it? Okay,
Yeah.
nuking it can do damage to...
Its mass, which
Yeah.
will change its gravitational
It
pull,
will bat.
make the waves more unpredictable.
And it will also...
Will it? Didn't we detonate nukes in Japan?
That was for war.
Exactly my point.
That's
and what
different.
happened?
We're gonna go to war with the moon.
War
we're
with the
coming for
moon.
These raw tides, you cannot touch them.
They're making the tides, though. Okay, so the reason we don't. I would say one of the reasons we don't nuke the moon is one, it would launch debris into, everywhere. That would not be safe.
You just see a big moon chunk. Hey. He's a kid.
It wouldn't be so much as a chunk as particles sent into space in between our atmosphere and the moon and creating a dust cloud probably swirling around the moon that we could not see through.
Well, here's the thing. Some people think that the moon is actually hollow.
The reason why the moon couldn't be hollow is for the sheer fact that it would collapse under its own mass, unless there was some way that would be more like spider net.
Mm-hmm.
And
it has
the main thing is the moon's known for its craters, and those craters are caused from asteroids that slingshotted around our orbit hits right into it. I think the biggest crater there it's pretty huge.
It's a couple miles wide, if I remember correctly.
And since the moon technically has water inside of it that's frozen from all the meteorites and asteroids that's ran into it, the moon is theoretically habitable. All we have to do is make an ozone for it. That's why I said if we can nuke the core of Mars, the only reason why Mars isn't completely inhabitable, it doesn't have an ozone around it, or any electromagnetic field around it that protects it from its sun rays, and why it has sub-zero
It doesn't have
temperature.
a molten metal core.
Yeah, because
So-
it died out years ago.
You want to nuke Mars, but not the moon.
Well, we don't need to nuke the moon.
Yeah, nuking the moon is just like, hey, I'm bored. I'm going to throw a football at this person's face.
I did that once on accident.
Except usually inanimate objects such as the moon don't get angry.
Yeah, the moon doesn't really get angry.
Usually,
can't
but
really throw
not
it.
all the time. huh?
Hey, what about the beings that live on the moon that could possibly live on the dark side that we can't see through?
The dark side is constantly moving, isn't it?
No, the dark side actually always stands still. What we
moon doesn't
perceive
rotate?
no,
I didn't
we
know
the
that.
light
Tell us
side
about
is
that,
still-
Jacob.
Okay, the moon rotates perfectly with us. Okay, so whenever we see the dark side, we're actually just seeing the same side of the moon consistently. Even though it's the dark side, it's just the other half of the moon. It's confusing.
And we haven't really had any missions or anything on that side, and we don't really know what's happening there.
The main reason why we don't go to the dark side of the moon is for the main reasons that's beyond sub-zero temperatures. That if we walk past it, we literally turn to ice.
So yeah, that's why. Like, we don't know. We don't really know what's on the other side of the moon, and that was one of the goals of the Chinese little project that was happening recently, to learn a little bit more about that and what's happening there. It wasn't successful, but it was one of the things they were trying to achieve.
I actually didn't know about it.
Yep. So
If you think about it, you don't actually. If you're not looking for information outside of. That's going to go to a tangent. I'm not going to talk about it.
no, let's go there. Ashton, what do you think is happening there?
On the dark side of the moon?
Yes.
I think it's just the moon. Like there's nothing different.
Oh, yeah. If we're talking.
Okay, and let's not be crazy about it. Let's just say, do you think there's maybe different conditions that the ones we can see? This being related to temperature or some sort of atmosphere.
Well, surely the temperature there is different because it's the dark side of the moon. But I don't think there's going to be there wouldn't be any reason for the atmosphere to be a whole lot different. Just if there were some sort of atmosphere, it'd just be cold, very cold.
The main
Right.
reason why the dark side of the moon is actually cold is it's always in the shadow of us.
Well, yes, that's
Also,
why.
and also, it actually, since the dark side of the moon never really moves, but it does, but it's very, very slow. The core of the area is almost as cold as deep space.
Cool. So yeah, that's why I think nothing is different.
It's just go to deep space.
Well,
How cold is it?
you die almost immediately.
That's a misconception. You wouldn't die immediately because your
Yeah.
veins would slowly expand, your lungs would
but yes,
explode, and your blood would boil.
You die almost immediately, right?
You'll last
immediately.
about 20-ish minutes, and you will die of the most horrible death known to man.
But like, doesn't just because the vacuum of space, you're like everything like you expand. And,
Yep.
And doesn't because like there's a certain part of our atmosphere on Earth that causes blood to boil, liquids to boil, and that's why it has to be like a pressurized condition. And wouldn't your blood boil in space?
Yes.
Or freeze.
Or freeze after enough time. But because like I don't know like
The
all
reason
about
why
it,
our
but,
blood
like,
would boil is because there's oxygen in it.
So yes, it would boil and you would die.
Yes, but like I said, not completely immediately, because if you turn on a vacuum chamber, it's not instant.
But it's also cold and lack of air.
Yes.
And the vacuum of space is
It
constantly
takes-
a vacuum. It
Both
doesn't.
of those are going to be slow.
It takes a minute for you to die of oxygen loss, or lose consciousness theoretically. But if you're just there to get a small breach and all the pressure exit your suit and not the oxygen, because if the way the suit stays pressurized is through compressing the suit.
There's a reason that we don't just, kill people off in space. Alright, another break, gone. Anyway, so, as I was saying, there's a reason we don't kill people that way. The reason we don't kill people by exposure to space is because it's slow, it's messy, and also...
Expensive.
Expensive. Doing that kind of experiments is immoral. It's disgusting. Well, meh. It's okay.
Tell you something also that's very bad about it. Bodies don't decompose in space.
Yeah, exactly.
The body will be there for all eternity.
So why don't we just launch them into the sun?
Okay.
Because that's even more expensive.
Just make a super slingshot like an Angry Birds.
It's not that easy, you see.
I think the G-force alone would kill them.
Yeah. As we were talking earlier, we were talking earlier about a human artillery gun. Same
How
thing.
did we get there?
That's a really good question. Bobby Joe, can you answer?
We're not going to talk about that. Anyway, so, killing people in space, bad. Sending people to space and learning, good. Any questions?
If they die in the process of us learning, what do you do?
It's for the greater good.
Yeah, just keep telling yourself that.
You think it isn't?
Well, I think it is. Learning is good, but at the risk of people dying is not so great.
Well, you gotta think. How many people were lost on a lot of things, like discovering America, a lot of other things.
Yeah, discovering America.
America. Imagine how many people we lost on that alone.
Lots of people were lost.
How many people did we kill in the process, though?
A lot.
Okay, ow, that hurt for some reason. Okay, so what was I going to say? Future technologies. What do you guys think? Colonization.
Mars,
Mars, which we are
Jupiter, Venus.
can't
Uranus.
colonize. You can't colonize Jupiter. You can't colonize Saturn.
Those are gas giants. There's lots of problems.
You also, I don't think you can.
Goes to
same with
land. Goes to
Uranus.
land. Just falls right.
So isn't Uranus also? It's not a gas giant.
It's
but
not a gas giant, but it has a lot of
It's-
gases in the atmosphere.
It's most. It's like.
So it goes to
80%
land on
gas.
Saturn. Hey, this looks solid. Goes right through.
If you're landing on Saturn, you shouldn't be in space. I'm sorry.
And Brendan, to answer your question about what I thought about colonization or what we all thought about, I instantly thought of the 7 Years' War V2.
Mars
Race-
versus Earth.
race to see who can colonize Mars the fastest.
I feel like there is a race right now, a super slow one, but there is a race.
There's a race to see who can colonize faster, and it's not a fast race. It's And also to think about that, you can't do it easily. Because first off, you have to establish a atmosphere that people can live under. You have
well, only if you plan to be on the surface.
Correct.
Outside of like a habitat area.
Correct.
Well, I think the plan is not to do it like that. It's more to have an approach like, for example, in the movie The Martian, where we created like artificial environments.
Yeah.
Another crazy thing. Did you know Mars has oil?
Hmm?
Did you know Mars has oil inside of it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what oil is made out of?
Hey, stop it.
Organic decomposition. Meaning like, wait, Mars has oil. Or is it from dead things? What was on Mars?
Don't worry about it. And there's also polar ice caps.
Here's oil. America intensifies.
For oil?
Yes, we must go connect to the oil from the planet. Except for the fact that colonizing Mars is it's very difficult, and you would also have to establish a way to avoid the solar flares that are bombarding it regularly.
Yeah, but oil.
It's really not worth it. We have lots of different ways to get clean, free energy besides using oil.
Water.
Yeah, like killing people and making them into oil.
That is not at all what I was going to start a conversation about clean.
Wow.
Another thing you can do is
That escalated quickly. Okay.
okay.
All right, go ahead. Try to switch
so-
this into a clean.
So like clean energy, as in solar panels and wind and harvesting stuff. Well, not really harvesting, just getting it because it's there, as in sunlight. Solar panels. You could cover like a massive field with solar panels, and you could power a lot of things for a very long time.
Only in
I was wanting to buy a desert for that exact main reason. Deserts are like the most hottest and most sunburnt area. Even if it's a sub-zero desert, which is otherwise an Arctic desert, blah, blah, blah. A desert's just a place that's barren.
Even if we were just going off of what you said, you can't. It's not efficient.
What's not efficient?
Solar energy. If we were to do solar energy on Mars, it would be like 75% less efficient than it is on Earth, because it doesn't have enough time to collect that momentum, and there's a complicated way of explaining it.
Well, it would depend. As here on Earth, it would depend on the weather. You know, they need a good location for the solar panels or cells to be placed, and you can go from there. Yes, you can.
The main reason why people always conceive that putting solar panels on Mars would be a good idea, because Mars doesn't have any actual barrier between us and the sun. So therefore, the sun's radiation is pure. So solar panels might not work efficient in the way we want it to work here, like this on Earth, but we can figure a way to collect the sun's radiation from the solar flares, etc., use it.
If you can find out a way to collect it with the kind of radiation that is coming off of that, yes, it is efficient and probably more efficient. But with our current type of solar panels, they are meant to work off of the sun entering the Earth's atmosphere, bouncing back and forth off the ozone layer, and collecting that repeated energy.
To be specific, you mean the sun's light, not the sun itself.
Yes, we are absorbing the sun. Deal with it.
What's it called? Another clean energy we can actually do is HHO generator, which otherwise is splitting water from hydrogen to oxygen, which is really good. The fuel burns at around 3,200 degrees.
Do you know we have one of those here?
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
We have an HHO generator?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why it's a hydrogen generator.
Oh.
It's where it's using pure hydrogen and oxygen to make a pure flame. And if you can actually use that and compress it from hydrogen from oxygen, you have a clean burning fuel that will only turn itself back to water.
Interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that, but I feel like I should have known that.
And that's
So what do you guys know about like the concept of Dyson spheres and ring worlds?
Dyson spheres?
Yeah, Dyson sphere is basically a megastructure built in space that surrounds a star,
Oh.
and it has like solar panels inside and reflectors and stuff that very well.
The issue with that is it would kill Earth.
Well, I mean, that's why
He said A star.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. It doesn't have to be in our system.
Although that would be the easiest, it would also destroy our planet. Because then we don't get the sunlight.
Another thing that people make concept about is using a black hole. If you can put a mirror around a black hole and shine a light, black hole absorbs things. But if if it's a singularity, between a singularity, a singularity is a single thing that stays still. Singularity is a black hole that is a moving center.
But see, the problem with that is that's like cheating the system, and that's getting more energy out when you put stuff in. And that's dangerous because it could go explosive. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be the most powerful bomb in existence because it's exploding a black hole.
Singularities are not safe. They're never going to be safe.
But
And
ringularities are a little bit different. If you
don't
go in
really
one of
know.
those, you get twisted and turned.
So if we eventually get to the point where we are capable of building a megastructure in space around a black hole, that does not mean we should do it.
I can just see us doing that. It's like,
Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yes.
I can see a video camera, just people doing it, and I was like, one guy disappears. Where did Cody go?
Where did Cody go? In 20 years and 50 years in the future, Charlie Bit My Finger is still #1 on YouTube.
I don't get that reference.
It's an old reference because one point on YouTube there was one video that was stuck on the #1 charts for like I think several months.
As in, like a glitch, or just because everybody was watching it?
It was like a glitch. Anyway, we're wrapping. Anyway, to wrap it all up, thank you for watching the WCS History Podcast. Next time we'll be talking about the Industrial Revolution Part 2. And thank you for listening. Goodbye.